We have a breaking news coming in. First on Republic TV, we have accessed the charge sheet that has been filed against Robert Vadra, in fact, husband of Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra, and this is in fact the first charge sheet that has been filed against Vadra in the Shikhopur Land Scam, and this is the charge sheet. The details will be showing to you as far as this case is concerned. Remember, just a few days back, he was summoned by the ED in this case. He was questioned by the ED, and not the first time that he was questioned as far as this scam is concerned. We'll try and bring in our reporter for more on this as to what has been mentioned by the ED in this charge sheet that has been filed in the court. All right, let me go across to Shravan, who has more details about the charge sheet that has been filed against businessman Robert Vadra. Shravan, tell us, what does it mention?
Well, in fact, Akanksha, we can now confirm, first on Republic, that Enforcement Directorate has filed a charge sheet against Robert Vadra. Of the multiple cases where Robert Vadra has been named and has been called in for questioning, we are given to understand that in the Shikhopur Land Scam is where Robert Vadra has now been named as an accused. In fact, we can confirm that he is accused number 1 in the Shikhopur Land Scam, which has been probed by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, what's the role of Robert Vadra that was being probed by the Enforcement Directorate? It is to do with a company that was being run in the name of Robert Vadra, which had allegedly received land from another company at a throwaway price. This land was thereafter given to DLF, is what we are given to understand. And thereafter, remember, the proceeds of crime that was basically diverted to multiple other companies. In fact, the land value was also bumped up after it was given away from the company that was being controlled by Robert Vadra to DLF itself. Remember, that very land parcel, the land rate was at a much lower rate, and the fact that this was thereafter given to DLF at a much higher price. In fact, it turns out that the then Haryana government had also changed certain notifications, making it far more easier for the company to actually take full control of this land parcel. And more importantly, it turns out that certain notifications were changed within a short span of time, enabling the company that was controlling, that was being controlled by Robert Vadra, to hand over this land parcel to another third company.
Absolutely, ED heat on Robert Vadra. In fact, every time he's summoned, Shravan, and reporters ask him about the case, his involvement, always his reply is that this is a political vendetta. But now that he's been named as accused number 1 in the charge sheet, this is a big trouble for him.
Well, in fact, there is absolutely no doubt about the fact that since this is the first charge sheet that has been filed against Robert Vadra, it does mean more legal trouble. Having said that, it is also important for the Enforcement Directorate to be able to pull this entire investigation through when it comes for hearing in the court. Certainly, at this point in time, one cannot basically hold Robert Vadra guilty, given the fact that the trial hasn't even begun. But having said that, prima facie, if you really look at the evidence that has been gathered by the Enforcement Directorate, they are heavily relying upon certain email exchanges that have essentially taken place between him and a few of his associates. More importantly, they've also been able to scan through the land deeds, which is also another indication of how there was a change made in the land deed itself, and more importantly, how this was all being done at a breakneck speed without even following certain procedures. And that is the reason why, remember, multiple times Robert Vadra has been called in for questioning by the Enforcement Directorate. It turns out that when the Enforcement Directorate was actually questioning Robert Vadra, they were basically looking at, 1, whether at all there was a direct link or not. Number 2, whether at all the company that was basically floated, was it directly floated by Robert Vadra, and whether at all there were other people who was running this entire company. And finally, of course, the transfer of the ownership of the land from the company that was being controlled by Robert Vadra to a third company. All of it has now been examined by the Enforcement Directorate, and they believe that the case in hand that they have is watertight, and perhaps when it comes up for hearing in the trial court, this would